One of the most fascinating game design choices I came across recently were the warp cannons from Mario. These hidden shortcuts are tucked away in the deep corners of just a few levels, and they only serve one purpose, which is to let you skip entire worlds worth of content. So the other day when I was replaying the game with a few friends, a question hit me. Why would a developer actually want this feature in their game? From a game design standpoint, it feels completely counterintuitive. A single level can take weeks of testing, designing, and polishing, yet Nintendo is giving you a giant yellow pipe to bypass most of it in seconds. Well, as it turns out, this wasn't just a fun idea or decision the developers made on a whim. These skips are actually a calculated tool and were always planned. So after digging through the history and the game design philosophy of the Mario series, I found that skipping levels isn't about avoiding the game. It's actually one of Nintendo's most effective ways to enhance a player's experience in their world. To understand why these cannons exist today, though, we have to go back to 1985. See, in the original Super Mario Bros., there was no save system. Because of hardware restrictions at the time, the cartridge didn't have the internal battery needed to save data. So if you wanted to see World 8, you had to play through all 32 levels at once. Now, as you can imagine, this is a bit of a pacing nightmare for a developer. It was also really frustrating for the player, since it made reaching the endgame content a super difficult task. So to fix this problem, Nintendo actually took inspiration from another game called Excitebike. That game was unique because it allowed players to switch to later levels through a menu. But instead of a dry menu, Nintendo implemented that level select into the gameplay itself, by hiding warp zones behind the physical geometry of the level. They turned a technical necessity into a reward for curiosity. These warp zones allowed players to reach those later levels in just one play session, levels and worlds they may have never seen otherwise. But obviously today's hardware has caught up. We have save files and cloud backups, so the original technical need for warps is gone. Yet in new games like Super Mario Bros. Wii, the warp cannons are still there, and that's because these secrets happen to solve another problem: linearity. Normally, a 2D platformer is just played in a straight line from left to right. But by adding a secret exit or a warp cannon, you now change how the player mentally engages with the game. The levels stop being just an obstacle course you're trying to survive, and instead start being a place you explore. By hiding these secret paths, Nintendo creates an illusion of depth. It makes the Mushroom Kingdom feel less like a series of isolated levels, and more like an interconnected world with hidden layers. And this is the same design philosophy behind Metroidvania games, where a shortcut loop makes a map feel way larger than its actual size. Even if a player never uses the cannon, simply knowing it exists changes their perspective. It gives them agency. You aren't just being pushed through a pipe by the developers. You are choosing your own route throughout the game. Beyond exploration, though, warp cannons also create an implicit skill hierarchy. In a Mario game, beating the game isn't exactly a rare feat. Most people, given enough time, can eventually reach the credits. But knowing the shortcuts and exactly where the warp cannons are creates a real distinction between a beginner and a pro. Nintendo loves this kind of mechanic because it's a mechanic that casual players can just completely ignore, while an advanced player can exploit it. It's an early form of what we would call sequence breaking. A first-time player sees 8 worlds that they think must be beaten in order, but an experienced player sees a web of route optimizations, and that dramatically changes replayability. Without warps, replaying means you have to replay every single level, which can get really boring if you've already mastered the early worlds. But with the warp cannons, you can just skip the filler and jump straight to the challenge you actually want to play. And of course, this naturally bleeds into things like speedrunning or challenge runs. By including the warp cannons, Nintendo isn't just letting you skip their work. They are giving you the tools to master the game. They are allowing you to turn their game into a personal test of efficiency. Finally, though, we need to look at the social impact of these secrets. Because while the cannons are great for gameplay, they're even better for the community. Back in the day, before every secret was documented on a wiki, finding a warp zone was like discovering forbidden knowledge. It was the kind of thing that got people talking at school. It turned a game into a legend, fueling rumors or playground myths about what else could be hidden in the code. And today, that same energy has kind of been translated into content. These secret exits and warp cannons have become the basis for strategy guides, YouTube deep dives, like the one you're watching right now, and even speedrun routes. They turn what could be a basic linear game into something people can discuss and analyze for years. By hiding these skips, Nintendo isn't just creating a shortcut for the player. In many ways, they're creating a spark for discussion. It gives the community something rare to find, and a way to compare different journeys throughout the game. In a way, these cannons are the ultimate reward for being curious. Not just because they save you time, but because they also give you a story to tell. At the end of the day, Nintendo doesn't want you to just finish their game. They want you to replay it, master it, and claim it for yourself. And warp cannons offer you the chance to accomplish all of those things. I hope you enjoyed this video. Hope you have a great rest of your day. I'm out.